Hi, good morning. We're now going to have a look at task 5 of R65. Sorry, I don't know why it's not loading. Okay, there we go. So it's worth, the first bit is divided in two parts. I don't know if you remember, the mark scheme divides it in two different sections. Section 1 is worth 9 marks and therefore 15% of your total coursework. This task in total is 30%, so it's like a very heavy task. So please do it properly. And you can have a look at the mark scheme in your own time. I'm just going to go through what you have to do very quickly. This is all the stuff that I put in your coursework, so you know what this should be. So identify the fixed cost per month. Then you've got to predict the number of units that you're going to sell based on, well, we talked about this, based on how many progress ahead shops you think there are in the UK. Then you have to calculate the variable cost per unit using the table from the booklet thing that I showed you. Select an appropriate pricing strategy. Of course, like I said a million times, please make sure that you are also discussing the other pricing strategies that you've studied, and then you select the one that you think is the most appropriate. Then you've got to select a price that you're going to charge for your hats, and that has to be in line with your pricing strategy. So obviously, if you have done psychological pricing, then you have to do something like you have to choose a price that has to do with that type of pricing strategy. It can't just be like £3. It has to be something with the 99 and so on. And if you've done same thing, if you've done price skimming or price penetration, it has to go it has to be in line with your pricing strategy. And then you have to calculate the total cost per month, not the fixed cost, the total cost per month. Okay, and then you have to predict the total profit for the first month as well. Now, I've given you here, the slide is awful, I know, but you need to make sure that you know the formulas. I've noticed that a lot of you actually have forgotten these formulas. Please make sure that you're looking at your notes, that you're looking at the slides, or that you're looking at the old slide, because you need to make sure that your calculations are accurate. Otherwise, it's going to mess up your whole task 5. I can't really comment too much on your calculations, like you have to do them yourselves. Girls, please make sure that your calculations are accurate, because they're literally going to mess up your whole task 5. Okay, then we got the second part, which is the one that you keep asking me about. That it seems to be the one that you find quite problematic. Also worth 9 marks, so 15% of your total coursework. So the first bit has to do with your break even. You've got to demonstrate a thorough understanding. What do you mean by thorough understanding? You've got to define it. You've got to explain what it's useful for, what it might not be useful for, and so on. Then you have to actually calculate your break even point, and then you have to explain the results of the break even analysis. Basically, what would happen if there was a change in price, or what happened if there was a change in your variable costs or something. But make sure that you show that if you charge a slightly higher price or a slightly lower price, what would happen to your break even, and then comment on it. You know, well, if I increase my price by this much, I would actually have to sell a lot less to actually break even, but then that might have an impact on my customers. Just like comment on what would happen if you change your price a little bit up and down. Then you have to produce a an assessment in terms of how viable, the risks, how viable and what are the risks that are involved with your hat project. Okay, and then the final bit is you're going to have to evaluate the financial viability of your business after having calculated and assess your risks. Okay, so let's have a look at this bullet point here that a lot of you seem to struggle with. You have to basically click on these slides, on this link here, and it will take you to the slide on the viability lesson. Okay, so you go here, and literally what you got to do is you got to have a look at what might be the things that could make your product fail. Okay, so there are a number of risks involved that could make your product fail, and these could be a lack of demand, overspending on budget, losing money or investment, copyrights, patents, original ideas, and so on. And there might be other things that you think that could maybe, you could even just say like maybe like selecting the wrong price or pricing strategy and so on. Like there are a number of things that could be problematic about your project, and that's what you got to do in this bullet point here. Okay, so that's what you do when you're asked to produce a self-assessment. And then we've got the last part, which is about the judgment. I've got 14 seconds left. What you got to do in this bit here is you got to do, based on your own judgment, what are the risks? Like, do you think your overall your project is more like